Breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ. We've got a Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Final. This, the capper. Stuart Skinner swiped away in the crease and sending it ahead to Darnell Nurse for the capper. 5-1 Edmonton. That's 3 games in a row with 5 or more goals. And now we have got a Game 7 as the Oilers look to pull the reverse sweep. They're just the 3rd team in NHL history joining the 1942 Maple Leafs and the 1945 Red Wings to force a Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Final after trailing 3-0. And only one of those teams won it all. The 1942 Maple Leafs, who actually beat the Red Wings. They were led by, you never forget this guy, old Sweeney Schreiner. And the Maple Leafs and now the Oilers could be in the same sentence together in terms of coming back from a 3-0 deficit in the Stanley Cup Final. A Game 7 Monday night back in South Florida. And for more, welcome in CBS Sports NHL writer Pete Blackburn. Pete, we've got a Game 7. How the heck did we get here?
Great question. This is unbelievable.
Ridiculous.
I mean, after one of the most ridiculous and chaotic NHL regular seasons that I can remember in my lifetime, now we have a Game 7 being forced by possibly the most chaotic team in the entire NHL the entire season after being down 3-0. It's unbelievable. I thought that Florida really needed to make a statement in the first 20 minutes, maybe the first 10 minutes of this game, in order to kind of quell the momentum that Edmonton had garnered over the last couple of games, especially with the game being in Edmonton with that crowd. They could have done themselves a huge favor by quieting them down a little bit. What you get instead is 2 shots on goal through the first 20 minutes. You don't get a shot from a forward from the Florida Panthers through 32+ minutes in this game. An incredible job by the Oilers being able to shut down the Panthers and not really allow anything in the terms of high danger chances. They were really good with their sticks throughout most of this game, blocking lanes. Just a really, really impressive defensive effort from Edmonton in this game. And they converted on their opportunities, and here we are. We're heading to Game 7.
Want to take you back to a critical moment in the second period here of Game 6. Adam Henrique scores to make it a 2-0 game. Then 10 seconds later, Alexander Barkov scores, but the Oilers challenge for offsides. Hat tip to Chris Knobloch. Oh, so close. Game of inches. How about a game of millimeters? No goal. So instead of a 1-goal game, it remains a 2-goal lead for the Oilers. Pete, what did you see on that play?
Yeah, it was so close, and we were debating it live on stream, and I said that I wouldn't have called it back just because I didn't think it was super conclusive. And I'm always kind of on the edge of, or on the side of, if it doesn't violate the spirit of the rule. I don't love the frame-by-frame analysis, the pixels that you have to analyze. And listen, I know this is a Stanley Cup Final game and you want to get the call right, but they called it a goal on the ice, and so I was leaning just kind of leave it, and I didn't see anything conclusive. It was a good challenge, obviously, ultimately by Chris Knobloch in taking that goal off the board. Honestly, felt like a goal had been scored against the Panthers. And, right after Adam Henrique's goal 10 seconds earlier, that felt like a real dagger in that moment. And obviously, it was a gamble by Chris Knobloch, because if that goal stands, then you're getting a penalty and you're going on the PK with an opportunity for the Panthers to tie the game that quickly. So that was a huge momentum shift for sure. It was a ballsy call by Chris Knobloch, but it ultimately paid off for him and his video coach.
I want to give you 2 sets of numbers here. Panthers, 1 for 19 on the power play. Putrid. Oilers, 46 of 47 on the penalty kill. Elite. Elite, Pete.
It's unbelievable. If you had told me that we would be going to a Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, the Oilers would be there on the strength of an ungodly special teams unit, I'd bet my entire life that it would be the power play. And instead, it's the PK, a league average PK during the regular season. And the impact that Mark Stewart has had on that penalty killing unit, not only to be great at killing penalties, but also attack offensively, a power kill. Like, they have been consistently generating on that PK throughout this entire series, throughout these playoffs. It has been unbelievable. And again tonight, in big moments where they didn't want to relinquish any momentum in the game, that PK unit came up huge.
Pete, what's the mindset now of Paul Maurice and the Panthers? From up 3-0 to tied 3-3, they do have the benefit of going back to their home ice.
I'll tell you what, I'm a Bruins fan, so last year in the first round of the playoffs, they were on the other side. But as a Bruins fan, you could kind of feel it coming like a slow motion car crash that you just can't stop. And I think that this game 6, was the first time that you could kind of see it all over the Florida Panthers' faces, whether it was Paul Maurice absolutely losing his mind behind the bench and almost spitting his gum on his own players as he's screaming at the officials following that overturned goal, or just some of the players that you see with their faces on the bench after Oilers goals. Like, they know what they're in the midst of in terms of this slide. They know what they have in front of them and, you know, what's on the line, which is a potentially historically embarrassing choke. And I don't think that you can call it anything other than that when you hold a 3-0 series lead and hold all the cards in a Stanley Cup final against a team like the Oilers, who, you know, for all their credits and how streaky that they can be, not a team that you would expect to be able to rip off 4 straight wins against a team that's responsible like the Florida Panthers, the team that has been there in the previous postseason. Like, they were the adult team in this series, and now this is happening to them. It's really shocking. Obviously, the series isn't over, and Florida can still hoist the cup, but it is pretty stunning that they find themselves in this position.
Last time we had a Game 7 in the Cup final, you were there, 2019. I'm sorry to remind you of that, the Blues over the Bruins. That was a hell of a series. Hell of a series. Game 7 of this series, Monday back in Florida. Pete, buckle your seat. How do you stop the freight train that is the Edmonton Oilers trying to pull a reverse sweep?
I really think that you have to slow them down off the rush. What you saw in games, specifically in Game 2, the Panthers kept everything in front of them and didn't allow the Oilers to get anything off the rush. And that has just kind of completely lost a hold of the Panthers in this series. They continue to kind of give up these rush goals, and you're just going to lose if the Oilers are able to turn games into a track meet. You saw after Zach Hyman's goal, the Oilers had gone 4 for 4 on breakaways in this series since Game 4, and previously they were 0 for 4 in those previous 3 games. So it's just completely flipped on its head, and the Oilers are doing a really good job at dumping the puck in and kind of turning this into a track meet, and that's where they're winning with high-end skill, and they're converting on those opportunities. If you're Florida, you need to keep the play in front of you, and they're not doing a good job of that.
Okay, I want to be fully transparent here. I was rooting for the Panthers early in this series because I love Paul Maurice. He's a walking soundbite, one of the great characters in the National Hockey League, been around for a long time. Bobrovsky's been around for a long time, 14-year veteran, never won a cup in the 30 years of their franchise. Now I love chaos. Pete, I love chaos.
Oh, yeah.
I love, and I remind, we've had this conversation before, Chris Knobloch takes over in November when they're 3-9-1, flips the script. They're in the Stanley Cup final. They force a Game 7. How can you not root for a team that was down 0-3 and now 1 win away from doing something that only one team has ever done in the history of the National Hockey League in the Stanley Cup final? Like, I want to see the Oilers win. Do you think they win?
It's hard not to think that they win. I know that anything can happen in a Game 7, but all the momentum is behind them right now, and even when they were down 3-0, they kept preaching the same message. And I know that it's easy to do that, but they're following through, and it's just this unshakable belief that they have. Zach Hyman said it in the room as they were coming back in Game 4 and putting together a dominant win. They have an unshakable belief in themselves. And under Chris Knobloch this season, every time that they've lost 3 straight games, it has been followed by 4+ victories. So this is not unprecedented. Chris Knobloch is a win streak guy. He needs 1 more win with this team to put together maybe the greatest win streak in the history of the sport. And boy, we are lucky. Like, if you love theater, if you love chaos, there is nothing better than a Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final for a team that was down 3-0. Like, how lucky are we?
This is why there's nothing better.
Unbelievable.
This is why we watch sports, Pete. There's nothing better on there's nothing. This is the best reality TV there is. There's nothing scripted about this. Is incredible. And I know people go, oh, yeah, it's rigged. Stop. This is why we watch. This is why we get emotional. Hey, we yell, rigged, we cry. This is why we watch.
If it's rigged, God bless them for rigging an incredibly entertaining Stanley Cup final. I have no problems with the way they're rigging it.
Oh, man. What a series. We've got a Game 7, the two best words in sports. Game 7. I'll remind you, only one team in the history of the Stanley Cup finals come back to win the series down 3-0. Those 1942 Toronto Maple Leafs. Perhaps another Canadian team will join them on Monday. Pete Blackburn with his perspective here on CBS Sports HQ. Wow. So the Oilers looking to be the first Canadian team to win the Stanley Cup since the 1993 Canadiens. Canadian teams have lost in 6 straight Stanley Cup appearances. 6 straight. And now we've got a Game 7 in Sunrise, Florida. Game 7, Monday night for Lord Stanley's Cup. Oh, baby, let's go. Coming up, much more ahead from Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final. Back out to Rogers Place. We've got a report. You're watching CBS Sports HQ. Keep it locked.